When my CEO husband asked me to apologize to his girlfriend, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I sat there, stunned, in our perfectly decorated living room, the sunlight falling on the glass table like it was mocking me. I could feel my hands trembling, but I forced a smile. That smile was my shield, my way of telling him, and maybe myself, that I wasn't broken. But inside, I was cracking. I still remember the moment he said it. "You need to apologize," he told me, his voice cold, sharp like the edge of a knife. "For what?" I whispered, my own voice sounding small and unfamiliar to me. He didn't answer, he just looked at me, expectant. That's when I realized this wasn't about fairness or right or wrong. This was about control, about power, about reminding me, in his own twisted way, that he could bend me. The room was silent after that, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. I wanted to shout, to scream that I would never do such a thing, but something inside me told me to stay quiet, to measure every breath. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was the fear of losing what I had built for myself. I had worked so hard to climb in my career, to prove that I was more than just a wife or a shadow behind a successful man, and yet here I was, being told to bend for someone who didn't even matter in my life. I took a deep breath and let my eyes wander around the room. Our family photos stared back at me, pictures of birthdays, anniversaries, and vacations. I could almost hear the laughter echoing from the frames. And suddenly, I hated that I had let anyone else touch this part of my life, anyone else threaten it. He leaned back in his chair, calm, unshaken. "It's just a simple apology," he said. "It's not a big deal." I wanted to tell him that it was everything to me, that apologizing to a woman I didn't even know, who had been sneaking behind my back, was not simple. But I didn't. I only nodded, the kind of nod that said nothing but felt like it said everything. And then, as I walked out of the office that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A spark, a quiet, steady flame of something I had almost forgotten. Determination. If he thought this could break me, he was wrong. I might smile, I might nod, but I had a plan, and that plan was mine alone. Little did he know, the apology would be the beginning of a journey that would change everything, not just for me, but for him too. And it all started with one quiet decision to not play by his rules. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for the next of this story. You won't want to miss what happens next. I grew up believing that hard work and respect could take you anywhere. My mother worked 2 jobs just to make sure we had everything we needed, and my father, though quiet, taught me to stand tall no matter what life threw at me. That's probably why I never imagined myself in a situation where my own home felt like a battlefield. When I met him, my husband, I thought I had found stability. He was ambitious, charming, and successful in a way that made people notice him the moment he walked into a room. I admired that. I loved that. And for a long time, I believed that love could cover any cracks, any missteps, any secret heartaches. But the truth is, it only takes one hidden betrayal to make you see the foundation of your life shake. We had a good life on paper, beautiful home, successful careers, friends who envied us, and even a social circle that made us feel untouchable. But behind closed doors, the tension was growing, like a storm waiting to break. I had begun to notice little things, a missed call here, a lingering text there, but I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just tired from balancing my job, my family responsibilities, and my own dreams. Still, deep down, I sensed that something had shifted. He wasn't the man I married. The warmth had dulled. Conversations became shorter. His attention, once on me, seemed divided. And when I discovered the truth, that there was someone else, I felt a chill I hadn't known existed. Not anger at first, not sadness, just a quiet, hollow emptiness. I tried to confront him gently at first. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my voice calm. He smiled, a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes, and said, "Nothing at all. You're imagining things." But I wasn't imagining. I knew, and that knowledge settled into my chest like a heavy stone. Yet, despite it all, I kept my composure. I had my career, my friends, my independence, and I refused to let anyone, no matter how close, no matter how powerful, make me feel small. That's when I realized that if I wanted to protect myself and my future, I had to play the game differently. I had to think ahead, and I had to plan every move carefully. I started noticing opportunities, small windows where I could reclaim control. At work, I was already respected, but I pushed a little harder, proved a little more, and made sure that no one, not even him, could underestimate me. At home, I observed, I listened, I gathered information, and I reminded myself that patience could be a weapon if wielded quietly. I didn't want revenge, not really. I wanted justice. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. And deep down, I knew the day would come when the scales would tip, and when it did, I would be ready. If you're following my journey, stay with me, because the next reveals the first cracks in our perfect facade, the small tensions that would lead to the moment that changed everything. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for the next of this story. You won't want to miss what happens next. The small tensions started almost invisibly. A missed dinner here, a vague excuse there, a lingering look at his phone when he thought I wasn't watching. I told myself to stay calm. I reminded myself that I had worked too hard, thought too long to let emotions cloud my judgment. But still, the unease grew like a quiet storm I couldn't ignore. It was one rainy evening when it became undeniable. I came home from a long day at work, soaked from the sudden downpour, and found him sitting on the couch, his laptop open, a soft smile on his face that didn't belong to me. I froze for a moment, watching the way he typed, watching the way his eyes lit up at the screen. And then it hit me. This was her, the woman he had been hiding. "Who were you talking to?" I asked softly, my voice steady even though my heart was racing. He didn't look up. "Just a friend," he said, too quickly, too casually. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I decided to keep quiet, to watch, to understand, and what I saw over the next few weeks confirmed everything I feared. Late-night calls, hushed messages, invitations I wasn't meant to know about. He was slipping further away, and I could feel the walls of our life closing in around me. The hardest part wasn't his betrayal, it was the way he tried to make me complicit. He wanted me to smile, to nod, to pretend that everything was fine. He wanted me to apologize to her, his girlfriend, so he could keep his secret wrapped neatly inside our home. Every time he mentioned it, I felt a surge of disbelief, mixed with anger I couldn't voice. "Just do it," he said one night, leaning back in the leather chair, confident. "Say sorry, it's easier for everyone." I looked at him, my chest tight. "Say sorry? For what? For being lied to? For being betrayed?" I whispered. He didn't answer, and that silence spoke volumes. At work, I threw myself into everything. I led meetings, closed deals, and reminded myself that my strength was mine alone. But even there, the tension followed me. I would catch myself staring at my phone, expecting messages I didn't want. I would pause, wondering if tonight would be the night he asked again, or worse, tried to manipulate me into something I couldn't accept. It was exhausting, this delicate dance of patience, observation, and careful control. But I was learning. I was learning how to navigate a storm without being swept away. I was learning that strength sometimes meant biting your tongue, watching silently, and letting the truth reveal itself on its own time. I knew the moment was coming, the moment when patience would meet opportunity, and when it did, I had to be ready.
ready not just to survive, but to reclaim every ounce of my dignity. Because some lessons are taught not with words, but with silent courage.
I will never forget the day everything changed. It started like any other morning, coffee brewing, sunlight spilling through the blinds, the quiet hum of our home. But that calm was only a mask. I could feel it in the air, a tension I had been waiting for, a moment when the truth would finally demand to be seen. He walked in, confident as ever, expecting me to be the same compliant wife he had been manipulating for weeks. "Remember today," he said casually, "you need to apologize." I looked at him, my heart steady, my mind sharper than ever. "I won't," I said softly, and for the first time in weeks, he looked startled. He tried to convince me, tried to charm me, tried to twist my words. "It's just a little thing," he said. "It won't matter." But it mattered. It mattered to me, my self-respect, and everything I had built for myself outside of this betrayal. And in that moment, I realized something vital. I didn't need permission to stand tall. I didn't need his approval to reclaim my dignity. I had been patient, I had observed, and I had planned. Later that evening, I stepped into the room where I knew she would be. The air was thick, the tension almost unbearable. She smiled, unsuspecting, and I returned it, not with fear, not with submission, but with calm certainty. "I know everything," I said softly, "and I'm done apologizing for someone else's choices." Her face froze, my husband's eyes widened, and in that silence I felt a quiet triumph, a weight lifting from my shoulders. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't loud or dramatic, I was simply me, confident, composed, and finally free from the chains he had tried to wrap around my heart. That evening, I walked away from the confrontation with my head held high. I had a plan, yes, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, about proving that integrity and patience always have their moment. The apology he demanded would never happen. Instead, I had a promotion waiting for me at work, a recognition of my skills, my hard work, and my unshakable resolve. And as I drove home that night, watching the city lights blur past, I felt a calm I hadn't felt in months. The storm was over, not because he had changed, but because I had. I had chosen myself, my dignity, and my future. And that choice, quiet as it was more powerful than any apology he could have forced from me. Life has a strange way of teaching lessons. Sometimes the hardest moments lead to the most profound growth. That night, I realized I didn't need anyone's approval to shine. I only needed belief in myself. If you're inspired by my journey, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for the next of this story. The best is yet to come. After that night, the house felt different. Not because he changed, he didn't, but because I did. I could finally breathe without holding back, without pretending to be someone I wasn't. It was quiet at first, almost eerily so, as if the walls themselves were acknowledging the shift in power. And in that silence, I found clarity. I focused on myself, my career, and the life I wanted to build. The promotion at work wasn't just recognition, it was validation. It was proof that I could succeed, even in the midst of chaos, even when someone tried to diminish me. I had worked for this, earned it, and no one could take it away. At home, the dynamics had changed. He tried the usual manipulations, but they fell flat. My calm, my confidence, and my unwillingness to bend to his whims created a barrier he couldn't cross. I realized that true strength isn't about anger or confrontation, it's about standing firm, letting actions speak louder than words, and trusting that your own path will shine through. I also learned something unexpected about myself. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. I didn't need to hate him or her or the situation. I only needed to release the hold it had over me. The betrayal was theirs, not mine, and once I accepted that, the weight on my shoulders lifted. I spent more time with friends, with colleagues, and with people who genuinely cared about me. I rebuilt parts of my life that had been quietly neglected while I tried to maintain a facade of perfection. And in doing so, I realized that happiness isn't about controlling others, it's about reclaiming your own joy. One evening, I looked around my home, now peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced for months. I realized that the power I had been searching for wasn't in an apology, a confrontation, or even a promotion. It was in me. It had been there all along, quietly waiting for me to see it. I also understood that life sometimes forces us into uncomfortable lessons. We may face betrayal, manipulation, or unfair situations, but those moments are not meant to break us. They are meant to reveal our own strength. And when we rise from them, not with anger but with calm determination, we become unstoppable. In the end, I didn't just survive the storm, I learned to dance in the rain. I learned that patience, clarity, and self-belief are more powerful than any control someone else might try to exert. I had a life to live, a career to grow, and a soul to protect, and I was finally ready to do all of it on my own terms. The house was quiet, the storm had passed, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not the smile I used to hide my pain, but the one that reflected my inner peace, my resilience, and the woman I had become. As I sit here today, reflecting on everything that happened, I can finally see the full picture. Life has a way of testing us in ways we never expect. Betrayal, manipulation, and disappointment. These moments feel unbearable when we're in them. But looking back, I realized they were also lessons, shaping me into someone stronger, wiser, and more confident. I remember the quiet mornings after the storm, when the house was still and the world outside felt distant. Those moments were mine. I didn't need anyone else's validation, approval, or control. I had learned that my peace, my happiness, and my dignity were the most important things I could protect. And once I understood that, I felt an inner calm I hadn't known in years. The promotion at work was a milestone, but it was only part of my journey. The real victory was reclaiming my life and my self-respect. I no longer walked on eggshells, no longer measured my words or actions to suit someone else's agenda. I had found my voice, and I would never let it be silenced again. I also discovered the beauty of forgiveness, not for them, but for me. Holding on to anger, resentment, or the need for revenge would have only kept me trapped. By letting go, I freed myself. I realized that people will make mistakes, make selfish choices, or betray us. But how we respond determines the course of our own lives. I chose growth, not bitterness, strength, not despair. Life isn't always fair, and some lessons come in ways we never expect. But the moments that challenge us also reveal our inner courage. That courage isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, steady, and unwavering. It's the voice inside us that says, I am enough, I am strong, I will rise. And when we listen to it, we find that no one, no betrayal, and no circumstance can take that away. I want anyone listening to this story to remember one thing. Your worth is not defined by someone else's choices or actions. You are capable, deserving, and resilient. And no matter what storm comes your way, you can face it with grace, dignity, and determination. The house is quiet now, the storm has passed, and the sunlight filters softly through the windows. I smile, not because the past didn't hurt, but because I chose to rise above it. I smile because I am whole, and because I finally understand that the power I was seeking was inside me all along.
If my story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Stay with me for more real-life journeys of courage, growth, and hope.
After confronting the situation, I realized that the real challenge wasn't the betrayal itself. It was what I chose to do next. I could have let anger guide me, lash out, or act impulsively, but I had learned patience. I had learned observation, and I had learned that sometimes the quietest moves are the most powerful. I focused on my career first. I had a promotion waiting for me, a recognition I had worked hard for, but I didn't want it to feel empty. I wanted it to symbolize not just success, but independence. I stayed late at the office, led new projects, and made sure my contributions couldn't be ignored. Every small victory reminded me that I could thrive without anyone controlling my path. At home, I played my role carefully. I smiled when I needed to, I nodded when he expected it, but I was never genuine with the performance he wanted. I had a plan, one he would never see coming. He believed that by forcing me to apologize to his girlfriend, he could humiliate me, weaken me, but I let him think he had won, while I quietly laid the groundwork for the next step of my life. The secret plan was simple but powerful. I made sure all my professional achievements were visible, strategically positioned, and undeniable. I built alliances at work, strengthened relationships with mentors, and ensured that my reputation as a capable, intelligent leader was unshakable. Everything he thought he controlled, the narrative of my life, my compliance, was actually the opposite. He had no idea that every move he forced me into was helping me rise, not fall. Emotionally, I kept myself steady. I journaled every night, reflected on every conversation, and reminded myself why I refused to play his game. I realized that control is an illusion, and the only control I needed was over my own mind, my own choices, and my own actions. That awareness became my armor. And then came the day when everything fell into place. At work, I was recognized publicly for a project that I had led single-handedly. The praise was genuine, heartfelt, and completely unlinked to him or our personal life. At home, the tension was still there, but I no longer let it affect me. I had created a safe space inside myself that no one could invade. It was liberating. I had turned a moment of humiliation into a triumph, a forced apology into proof that patience, strategy, and self-belief always win in the end. I realized that true empowerment doesn't come from confronting someone else, it comes from building yourself up, quietly, intentionally, and with resilience. That's when I knew, beyond doubt, that my life had shifted. I had the power, the respect, and the freedom I deserved, and all it took was a decision to never let someone else dictate my worth again. Looking back on everything, I realized that the most powerful moments of my life didn't come from what others did to me, but from how I responded. That forced apology, the betrayal, the manipulation, it all seemed unbearable at the time. But now I see it as a turning point, a moment that revealed my strength, patience, and resilience in ways I never imagined. After everything settled, life didn't just go back to normal. It went forward, on my terms. I continued to excel in my career, earning not just promotions, but respect, trust, and genuine admiration from people who mattered. I built connections, strengthened friendships, and most importantly, I built a life that was mine, independent and unshakable. At home, I kept boundaries clear. I no longer allowed myself to be drawn into games of control or deception. He could act as he wished, but I had removed his power over me. Every decision I made, every step I took, was guided by my own values and goals. And in that space, I discovered a quiet joy I hadn't known in years, a life lived fully, without compromise, without fear, and without shame. I also learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing someone's mistakes, it's about freeing yourself from carrying their weight. I forgave, not to reconcile, not to give him peace, but to give myself peace. I let go of resentment, and in doing so, I felt lighter, stronger, and more whole than ever before. The real secret I discovered is that power doesn't come from control over others, it comes from control over yourself, from patience, clarity, and knowing your own worth, from believing in your abilities and trusting that you are capable of navigating life's storms with grace and courage. That knowledge became my greatest reward. And now, when I think of that time, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, I no longer see it as a period of loss. I see it as a period of awakening, a time when I learned who I truly am and what I'm capable of. Life taught me a lesson I will never forget. Sometimes the hardest trials create the strongest people. To anyone listening to my story, remember this: no one can define your worth, no one can control your future, and no storm, no matter how dark, can dim the light of someone who believes in themselves. Stand tall, stay calm, and trust that your strength will guide you through. If my journey inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories of courage, growth, and hope. Your support helps me bring these stories to life.